Welcome to BJC HealthCare's Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Commemorative Service. My name is Gina Calder, and I am the president of Barnes-Jewish St. Peter's Hospital and Progress West Hospital. I am grateful for this opportunity to join my BJC colleagues in sharing this special time of recognition and honor for the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you for your presence as we celebrate his life and legacy. During today's program, feel free to use the Slido tool to connect and share your thoughts with other viewers across our organization. And be sure to check out other resources on this webpage, including the full I Have a Dream speech by Dr. King. Today, across BJC and throughout our nation, we rightfully and respectfully pause to reflect on the work and the lasting impact Dr. King had as the dominant force of the civil rights movement. Some knew Dr. King as a man of faith and a leader. Others knew him as a Nobel Peace Prize winning visionary. A precious few knew him as a brother, a son, a husband, and a father. One thing is certain, that no matter what lens through which one viewed Dr. King, it was quite evident to all that his boldness of speech was backed up by his actions of love and his desire for peace and equality. Dr. King's integrity is just one of many qualities we can learn from and replicate in our own lives. Personally, I marvel at the respect and patience he showed to others, even those who opposed his beliefs in justice, fairness, and nonviolent protest. Often, this opposition came in the form of violence toward him and his family. But with an undeterred spirit, Dr. King pressed on despite never-ending challenges, overcoming enemies without and within, and opening eyes and hearts to the injustices plaguing our land. Today, we celebrate this man and his values. I hope you'll join us as we come together in moments of prayer, praise, and reflection, as we look at how we are reimagining the dream and serving with purpose. Together, we keep his mission alive across BJC and throughout our communities.
If you can't fly, then run.
If you can't run, then walk.
If you can't walk, then crawl.
But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward.
Sometimes it gets cold and you feel so low, but hold on, better days are coming. It gets rough in this world. I know it ain't easy, but hang on in there. I know better days are coming. You've seen good, you've seen bad, you've been happy and sad. But just remember that better days are coming. Friends, they will what you're going through. Stay focused and never lose your sight. I know people that don't see the hurt you feel inside. Keep on smiling. I know everything will be alright. Better days. Ooh, better days. For you and me. For me and you. I know they are coming. Whoa, better days. For your mother and your father, your sister and brother. I know they are. Whoa, better days. I know they are coming. They are coming. They Better days. Better days are coming.
A young preacher from Atlanta, Georgia, once posed this thought: life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? How are we realizing the dream for our sisters and brothers? We all come to work each day, bring our purpose to service those who call out for help along the way. Dr. King stood for a dream that was not a place to stand, but a process driven by the hand. One that we take up each day and work towards compassion being the rule of the land. We are the voices of BJC, mindful of the need and willing to answer the call. Let us harness our sovereign power to say no to injustice and stand for the good of us all. What are we doing for others who need someone to lead the way? I think the good doctor would have us honor all of our differences, call out for unity, and set our disagreements at bay. Everyone walks their own path, making investments they hope will last. In his memory, I implore you all to harness your strength and stand tall. Reimagine your service beyond the purpose of helping the other. In recognition of his dream, Dr. King would want us to see all people as our sisters and brothers. I pray that we will all answer the call to rise above disagreements and let no person fall. Separate we must do our part, yet united we stand. I wish you all a prosperous Dr. Martin Luther King Day and challenge you to reimagine the purpose that our professions command. To examine how your attitude towards the other is helping BJC lead the way.
Thank you, Chaplain Kyle, for those stirring words. And thank you to BJC's own Michael Green and Spring Norman and their bandmates for sharing your musical talents with us. I'm always amazed but never surprised to see our BJC colleagues who possess skills that go well beyond their roles with our team. Hi, I'm Rich Leikwig, President and CEO of BJC HealthCare. We are so pleased you're able to join us today to honor Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Today, we celebrate his legacy as a civil rights leader, and just as important, how his words and actions continue to inspire us to work together to bring forward meaningful change. Our annual celebration has grown each year, thanks to a group of team members from across BJC who have worked hard to create this experience. In addition to welcoming our colleagues, I'd like to also welcome those from outside our organization, family members, friends, and community partners who are joining us today. We appreciate that you're sharing your holiday with us. Chaplain Kyle asked us all some excellent questions. How are we answering the call of Dr. King's dream? And how are we, as BJC caregivers, leading the way? We are not unfamiliar with answering the call. Healthcare truly is a calling, whether we work beside or behind the scenes. Many of us have been drawn to our professions by a desire to serve and to help others. We also have answered the call since the first moment of this pandemic and every day since by showing up for our patients, for their families, and our community when they needed us most. Today's theme, Reimagining the Dream, Service with Purpose, is how we, our BJC healthcare team, can lead the way. Service with purpose shows up in many different forms. It starts in our hospitals and health service organizations, and then extends well beyond our walls. We see it when we embody our BJC values by providing compassionate and respectful patient care in a safe environment that makes everyone feel like they belong. We see it in the eager eyes of our students who had never considered a career in healthcare and weren't aware of opportunities for support to help them succeed. It's alive when we volunteer our time and join community partners at local events, distributing food and other items to families in need. And it's palpable through our community health improvement efforts as we work to close health disparities that impact those who are most often overlooked and underserved. Among the many wise words that we cherish from Dr. King, a quote I find especially meaningful and motivational goes as follows: "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." I invite and encourage you to never be silent, especially when there's an opportunity to stand up for others. That's the intersection between BJC's mission and Dr. King's dream. It calls on us to step off the sidelines, to get involved, and to move forward together, to advocate on behalf of others, especially those who are most vulnerable. It is guidance for how we show up in and for our community. We can make Dr. King's dream a reality all year round, not only on a single day when we pause and reflect on his legacy. So thank you. Thank you for being here today. But more importantly, on behalf of the communities that we serve, thank you for answering the call tomorrow and each day after.
The ultimate measure of a man
is not where he stands in moment of comfort and convenience,
but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Trish Lalo, and I have the pleasure of serving as president of St. Louis Children's Hospital. I'm excited to introduce some very special guests who are sharing their talents with us today. The St. Louis Children's Choir is a world-renowned vocal ensemble and a true St. Louis treasure. First, a little bit about the choir. In total, they're comprised of 450 singers, aged 6 to 18, from more than 200 schools and 85 zip codes in Missouri and Illinois. They train under the leadership of Artistic Director Barbara Berner and a team of music directors who provide performance opportunities and a choral music experience which emphasize musical excellence and character education. These young artists bring their talent and love of classical, sacred, contemporary, and world music to concert stages for everyone to enjoy. Members of the St. Louis Children's Choir have performed in more than 14 countries, as well as Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, and the White House. And we appreciate the St. Louis Children's Choir performing Lift Every Voice and Sing, especially for BJC today. A little background about this song. It was written as a poem by James Weldon Johnson, and it was first performed by 500 school children at a school in Jacksonville, Florida, where Johnson was the principal. And it was to celebrate President Lincoln's birthday on February 12th, 1900. Johnson's brother, John Rosamond Johnson, then set the poem to music, and it was soon adopted as the official song of the NAACP. Today, Lift Every Voice and Sing is recognized as the Black national anthem and one of the most cherished songs of the civil rights movement. This inspirational and moving song unites people and is meant to be sung together. That's why we'll have the lyrics on the screen, and we invite you to sing along wherever you are. Enjoy.
Sing a song full of the faith that the darkness has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the presence has brought us. We sing the rising sun, a new day begun. Let us march on to victory this morn. Stormy the road we trod, into chasing brought, felt in the days when one had died, yet through the steady peace, but not for weary feet, come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over the waves of distant waters. We have come, treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered. Not from the ruling past, till now we stand at last, with hope as we walk with sorrows cast. What of our weariness, what of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast guided our lives, led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Bless our feet, stray from the places of God where we met thee. Bless our hearts, come with the pride of the world we bless thee. Shall we read thy heart, may we all stand, true to our Lord, true to our native land.
The difference between a dreamer and a visionary is a dreamer has his eyes closed and a visionary has his eyes open.
It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Art McCoy. Dr. McCoy is an educator and an entrepreneur. His list of firsts includes being the first African-American superintendent and CEO in the Ferguson-Florissant School District and St. Louis University's first Distinguished Fellow for the School of Education. He was a certified teacher at 19, a principal at 23, and earned his doctorate at the age of 25 years old. Dr. McCoy has served on local and national panels with Dr. Bernice King and Martin Luther King III, and on over 35 boards like Mental Health of America in Washington, D.C., the Urban League, and our own St. Louis Children's Hospital. Most importantly, he is a dedicated father and devoted husband of 27 plus years. Please welcome Dr. McCoy.
I'm Dr. Art McCoy, and it is indeed a pleasure to be with you today. I want to thank you, Gina, for that warm introduction. Thank you, Rich Lightwig, for your leadership. And thank you to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Observance Committee for this tremendous program and for having me as the 2022 keynote speaker. To the broader BJC community of over 30,000 employees, I want to say we, the community, appreciate you. Myself as a board member for the Children's Hospital, as well as the uncle of a nurse at a BJC hospital, I want to say that we realize that you have been serving us and laboring with love and serving with a purpose. So much so that you are the hands, the feet, and the arms of the creative healing power of God. And the only sacred text, Bible, Quran, or Torah, and others that we might ever get to see in action or read through your body, language, and work each day. Thank you. I have up to 20 minutes with you, and I want to make the most of this time, so let's get to work. A crust of bread and a corner to sleep in, a minute to smile and an hour to weep in, a pint of joy for a huge pack of trouble, and never a laugh, but the moans come double. The moans. And that is life. Those words are seared to my soul from Paul Lawrence Dunbar. They come from him from when he was a slave, and writing those words after he was a slave and publishing them in his book entitled The Lyrics of a Lowly Life. They share a little glimpse of what life was like for him and many others. Nearly 100 years after the American dream was created. Through these words, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed with inalienable rights by their creator that includes life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That dream was not realized for decades, even centuries. After 750,000 people died in the Civil War, the Black man and woman were simply free, but it took more progress to have the right to vote. And it wasn't until the 19th Amendment that women acquired and earned the right to vote in 1920. And even still, all the way up to 1963, at the March on Washington, where a young Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King uttered these words. Citizens of color in America today still aren't free. In essence, we've been given a check stamped insufficient funds, but we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. Those words still ring in my heart because that was the essence of the speech that later got coined as the I Have a Dream speech, where Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King described and reimagined the American dream. It shows that it's so important to reimagine the dream because it echoes and rings in our minds still to this day, reverberating to mean things that it didn't even mean when it was originally written and stated in 1776. Those terms, all men, did not mean all men, and it did not include women. It didn't even include poor white men. But reimagining the dream had it become more inclusive. And then 2 years later, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King spoke in a speech in 1965. He said these words: a great slave preacher uttered words of profound significance. And that slave preacher could have very well been his great-grandfather, Willis Williams, who then fathered A.D. Williams, who then was the one who helped Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. go into ministry, who then had Reverend Martin Luther King. And of course, Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. married A.D. Williams' daughter. So that would be Reverend Martin Luther King's great-grandfather, Willis Williams, the slave preacher. He said these words: we ain't what we ought to be. We ain't what we want to be. We ain't what we gonna be. But thank God we ain't what we was. Oh, when I think about America, I can say those words apply to America. When I think of just 1 year ago today, or this month in January 2021, we were having an insurrection on our Capitol, the first time in the United States history, an insurrection on the Capitol. We ain't what we were. America can say that today when we look at our first female vice president, who became the first female to be sworn in as the United States president of America during President Biden's colonoscopy, where he was under, and we needed the vice president to serve during that time. We're not what we were. When we had our first Black president become elected for not just one term in 2008, but 2 terms, and served 2 terms. That being just 8 years after the first time that all the states honored the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's Day that we're celebrating today. That was the first time in 2000, and just 8 years later, we had our first African-American president. We aren't who we were. Yet and still, we have so far to go because we're not what we want to be. We aren't even who we ought to be. And we're not who we're gonna be. Now, the power of a healing community is one that pushes us to progress, to become better than who we were. The power of a healing community is one that says we must bend the arc of the moral universe towards justice, because I can never be who I ought to be until you are who you ought to be, and you can never be who you ought to be until I am who I ought to be. If the coronavirus hasn't taught us anything, it should have taught us that an invisible virus could bring people to a point to limit their liberties, to lengthen their life. And it could bring us to a point that we understand the inextricable mutuality of humanity. Whatever affects one of us directly affects all of us indirectly, and sometimes directly. And so therefore, we have to keep pushing through a healing spiritual power within us that says we can rise above this situation, that we can have the soul force to be a well enough community to help us become better today than we were yesterday. Now, as a work environment, I want to tell you the power of you being an all-inclusive team working so hard to make us well. When you give all that you've given, the world has acknowledged that you as people have enlarged us as a humanity. When you are all inclusive as a team and then give like you've given for nearly 2 years plus now, you say that the best of us does the following essence that all souls want in society and in the world. It's the secret of life. We want to say and know that I see you. Secondly, we want to be supported. I support you. Thirdly, we want to know and be made sufficient. And as an all-inclusive team working hard, and as a work environment, and as citizens in our society, in a health community, I see you. It's so important to have the notion of being seen for who we really are, more than the outer me, but the person placed inside of me. I support you, even though it may hurt me, even though it may limit my liberty, these masks and other things. I support you because we are inextricably tied together. And that is our fabric of reality. And you are sufficient. You can make it. You can make it through any time. And if you aren't sufficient, then together we are sufficient. We can do it. When you replace the I in illness with W-E, you get we for wellness. The power of a healthy community totally exemplifies the we relationship of not me, myself, and I, but together we can. And so I want to say thank you for having us have a vaccine, because together you did, and we can be better today. Thank you for helping us to make a way to breathe. When I can't breathe, simplified the words of George Floyd on the ground. It also simplified the words of millions who had a virus that was oppressing and snuffing out their life. Two different powers at work, but the same outcome of death through oppression. You pushed us to a place to progress beyond that through healthcare. And others pushed in courtroom situations to have a place where murders of George Floyd and the murders of Ahmaud Arbery could be brought to have some accountability. This is what a healthy community does. We look and we say, we're not what we ought to be. We're not what we're even going to be. We're not even what we want to be. But as sure as I breathe, we're not what we was. We're not what we were. Now, I want to take you further and say that we as a people have to be called to action. We have to be called to action to be part of the solution. Let me tell you a story. A man asked God to show him a vision of heaven. That man was immediately raptured in an elusive dream into a huge room filled with millions of people around a circular table. And in the center of that huge table was a pot of succulent stew. It smelled good to the millions of people. They were hungry, they wanted some, and they had spoons. And they took their long spoons to dip it into the middle of the table to try to get some of that stew. They smelled it, it smelled good, they were hungry, and each time they would try to bring it to their mouth, the stew would slip out and nothing would be there. And the people were moaning and groaning and having hours to weep in and not even a crust of bread to eat because they couldn't get access to the stew. And the man said, God, I asked you to show me heaven, but clearly this is hell. And immediately God took him out of that room into an even larger room with billions of people around a smaller table, but still similarly large. And with an even smaller pot of stew, but that was just as succulent, smelling good. And the individuals had long spoons around the table and they were reaching that spoon across to dip in to get that stew. And then they would take it out and reach across the table to feed someone else. I want to say that that was heaven. Because each of the people, billions, got what they needed. The stew never ran out. The spoons were long enough. And the people were made whole by feeding their sister and brother. I ask you today to be a little bit of that heaven on earth that teaches people how to use a spoon. See, some people don't know how to use their equipment and spoon to help someone else. Sometimes we have to spoon feed our brother or our sister. Some of you do that helping people in need, in rehabilitation and more. Sometimes we have to build larger spoons. Sometimes we have to come closer to one another, even though there's more of us, billions, so that you can get to know one another, because the distance in some table can make you think that it's a foreign object or something that's not a representation and reflection of you. See, a healthy community that's an all-inclusive team makes a way out of no way to put others in a position to be helped because they know it's coming back to you. See, it sounds altruistic, but it's not. Because as you feed someone else is going to use their spoon and feed you. So I ask that you continue to find ways to use your spoon. Continue to find ways to help someone else be spoon-fed. Continue to find ways that people need substance. That is the healing power of a healthy community. It's not about me, myself, and I, but it's about we. It's about Ubuntu, the fact that I am because you are and you are because I am. Sometimes we have to mask up. Sometimes we have to vax up with vaccines. Sometimes we have to show up and to speak for the unseen. Sometimes we have to stand up and intervene. Sometimes we have to wake up, pray up, stay up, study up, clean up, dress up, confess up, and ultimately sometimes we have to make up. But in all of our doing, remember that the past is in our head. The present is in our hands. And the future is in our hearts. So choose to be a little part of heaven today to make this a better reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. McCoy. Please welcome back to the program BJC team members Michael Green and Spring Norman and their band, reminding us it's going to be a lovely day.
Sunlight hurts my eyes. Something without warning, love weighs heavy on my mind. Then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Alright, just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day, yeah, yeah. Ooh, yeah, 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 a lovely day. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. When the day the lights ahead of me seems impossible to face. When someone else instead of me, they always seem to know the way. Then I look at you, and the world's alright with me. Alright, just one look at you, and I know it's gonna be a lovely day. Lovely day.
An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity.
As we honor the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we have an opportunity for reflection and to ask ourselves, what can we do to carry on Dr. King's dream? Hello, I'm Dr. Stephen Player, and I have the pleasure of serving as BJC HealthCare's Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And as we reflect on Dr. King's life's work and ultimate dream for equality and equity, we might look to also appreciate how it intersects with BJC's mission to improve the health and well-being of the people and communities we serve. Within BJC, we have established a vision that challenges us to be a national healthcare leader where diversity, equity, and inclusion are embedded in our values, honored in our daily practices, and experienced by everyone we serve. And as we strive to become this national model, we must also do our part to ensure that everyone has access to timely, high-quality care. Foster a culture of inclusion in every space and place within BJC. Ensure that every patient, visitor, and team member feels like they truly belong. And in so doing, we will enhance our potential to build trust with both those who turn to us for care as well as with our colleagues who provide it. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you to Carlos Bledsoe from the BJC Community Health Improvement Team and Karen Morrison from the BJC Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. They will share the many ways BJC continues to show up in and for our communities, serving with a purpose beyond the hospital walls, especially amidst a global pandemic that has forged on for 2+ years. You will also hear how BJC is responding to our community's needs by using our resources to form partnerships that improve the social determinants of health, such as housing, jobs, and education, and how BJC is meeting people where they are when it comes to healthcare needs, including the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines. While we know there is more work to be done to achieve Dr. King's dream, we thank our team members and community partners for joining us in our efforts.
A lot of the work that Dr. King did was understanding where people are and meeting people where they are, which is a little uncomfortable at times, but it's a great thing because it enables us to be, again, better employees, better people, and to just really build community in terms of belonging and what we want to do with society and the patients that we serve.
BJC is able to leverage the presence that we have in community. We have respect and credibility in St. Louis because of the longstanding history and knowledge base of BJC and the Washington University Collaborative. And what that allows us to do is to bring people together. We have identified that one of the main roles we'll play is convener. We'll help bring the right people together to address the social determinants of health. We'll do the part that we can, but there are parts that are played by others in this community. And our work will help bring those people together so that we can meaningfully impact the lives of those in St. Louis we serve, economically, in schools, for birthing mothers, for businesses. There's a lot of work that we'll do in collaboration with others.
We refer to it as healthcare outside of the walls of the hospital. And so that's meeting the community where they are within the community. It's not just about patients and families having to come to BJC for services. It's about BJC bringing services out into the community.
And in the efforts to address COVID-19, some things had to be put in place to actually go into community and meet the needs of people where they are. And our group has played a prominent role in that. Our role has been an interesting one, where we've actually connected the dots of several people in St. Louis, in Washington University, in BJC, in community members, to create community events where we deliver vaccines at churches, businesses, at community centers. We've had just a tremendous outpouring of support from everyone we've asked. This commitment has been so incredibly well received by the St. Louis community. Not only are people looking forward to BJC helping them in their work, they're excited for what BJC brings to the table.
I will tell you, we have many volunteer programs and opportunities available, and that number is growing at a daily rate, quite honestly. And so what I'm seeing from BJC employees is just a sincere dedication and appreciation of the volunteerism that we have out in the community. I cannot tell you how many employees have commented to me over the last couple of years about, I love this. Please keep this going. Can I bring my family out when we go out into the community? It's just a breath of fresh air for me to be out here. And I really love that we're giving back and that BJC is actually showing up in the communities that we serve to support them.
The words that I will leave for anyone who sees this, my words are that join in and help. People are looking for our help. And we'll make a tremendous difference together.
Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that.
Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
We sincerely thank everyone who helped make today's service possible. And thank all of you for helping us recognize and honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy. We welcome your feedback on today's event and invite you to complete the survey you'll receive to help us create memorable events to celebrate Dr. King in the future. Dr. King's love for his fellow man was evident in his quote, "Love is not emotional bash. It is not empty sentimentalism. It is the active outpouring of one's whole being into the being of another." It is my hope that the values that we've showcased in this program not just serve to inspire us one day out of the year, but that we are able to incorporate Dr. King's ideals and principles into the very fabric of our lives, in how we communicate with, how we respect and how we love each other today, tomorrow, and every day of the year. Please let's join together in reimagining the dream and serving with purpose. Now, we'll welcome Janelle Calloway, chaplain at St. Louis Children's Hospital, who will close out today's ceremony.
We appreciate your willingness to continue honoring with us the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Imagine if Dr. King were here with us today in this celebration. He would be 92 years old. No doubt he would have visited this institution called BJC several times, and this one would be the most historic because it would probably be his last. He would not want any recognition for the many awards and commendations that he received throughout his life. Instead, he would compliment each of you for the hard work you render daily to make our institution better. He would be proud of all the new structures and expansion of healthcare services throughout the city, county, and the region. He would be pleased that our HSOs rank among the top providers in healthcare throughout the world. He would be delighted that our institution, the largest employer in the state of Missouri, took the initiative to lift our brothers and sisters from the quicksand of poverty by paying them $15 per hour. Without a doubt, Dr. King would be extremely proud of BJC. Yet, he would charge you to honor your success while charting the pathway to greater. So I stand in his stead to tell you that greater is within each of you. Get it out. Don't you stop. Keep going until compassion not only rolls off the lips, but becomes embedded in the heart. Keep going until respect is equally accorded to the stranger and the native alike. Don't you stop. Keep going until we see the excellence in each of you come forth. Keep going until safety for everyone is not just a thought, but a deed. Don't you stop. Keep going until teamwork is realized at every level, through hardship and disappointment, as well as through triumph and victory. You all must keep going. Now, I know I won't get there with you to see all these wonderful things come to pass, because I'm retiring June 30th, 2022. Just know that you, BJC, will make it to that marvelous day. So by the power vested in me, by the master architect of the universe, I appoint, license, and ordain each of you to keep going. Now may the Holy One give you grace and hope to go on to greater. Amen, amen, amen.